Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, brought to you by Safety Culture Strategies. I'm Mike Kinney, your host, and each week we have the opportunity to bring some fascinating guests onto the show for our viewers. We've had PhDs, retired shuttle pilots, owners of companies, safety practitioners, some of the boots on the ground people. And today I'm really pleased, I think, for the first time on our show, because we're getting ready to go into our third season, we have a guest from Nicaragua. Yeah, I said that's that country way away from here. We have Mr. Nicholas Crump with us, who's a senior consultant with Culture Change Consultants, LLC, founded by Stephen Simon, PhD. I'm a big fan of Stephen Simon, telling you right now. Since 1983, Dr. Simon and his team has been partnering with Fortune 500 companies to improve their safety culture. Nicholas works across companies from the C-suite to frontline employees. As a senior consultant, he has led the implementation of several successful safety culture change initiatives for numerous companies. Examples include Florida Power and Light, Ball Corporation, CHS Inc, McPherson Refinery, MillerCoors, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and Coca-Cola Refreshments. He also supports the safety culture efforts at Portland Electric Company, Seattle City Light, and The Wonderful Company. Nicholas is uniquely qualified in both the hard and soft sciences, yet most importantly, he communicates complex ideas effectively across all job classifications. His master's thesis, Leadership Alignment with a Safety Culture Journey, provides insights into leading change at the mid-management level and what is needed to cut across title, tenure, and rank to achieve desired results. Nicholas, welcome aboard from Nicaragua. First time I ever had a chance to say that on the show.
Yeah, it can be a mouthful.
So what's your weather like there, sir?
Well, it's rainy, so that means an afternoon shower. But the weather in Nicaragua, at least where I live, if you want to change the weather, you open the window. If you want to change the weather, you close the window.
I love it. So we briefly touched upon your career. And before we get started, because you and I have chatted on it, we had some emails back and forth. There's lots of topics we like to talk. I got to ask, what's it like to be around Dr. Stephen Simon? That just must almost daily be a breath of fresh air, because I'm biased. I kind of view him as one of the Mac daddies of safety culture from the beginning of this many, many, many years ago.
Yeah, Mac Daddy. I mean, I don't know if we call him a Mac Daddy, but I would definitely call him a spark. He always has energy. He's always questioning what we're doing around safety culture and how we do it better, what's going on with our clients, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And he's a gentleman with a lot of energy. I think he told me the other day he did 11 or 12 pull-ups in his personal training. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. I went to the gym that evening and made sure I could get 12, right?
Yeah.
So I think up with his energy and passion for safe.
Wow. So from your perspective, and you've obviously been with a lot of very highly regarded companies, very successful in helping them align their trajectory, if you will. So what's some key attributes of a positive safety culture?
Well, it's one that has a reporting culture, I would say, first off, and that there is trust in that reporting, and that information that does get reported about safety is seen as a valuable tool to move the organization forward, and not as a way to employees, or sometimes it can suppress information. So positive safety culture is a culture where people can report the information that they experience, and then that information then gets used as a learning opportunity for other people. Because in safety, if you've got a lot of near misses, and right. I really think about, how do we get more of the that approach around managing those near misses and learning from those than it is from learning from the actual incident.
you're right on target, because I've worked with a lot of companies, not near as many as you, and I'll be in discussion with him. He says, we're getting too many near misses. I said, okay, I think we have an opportunity here for more conversation. Because to me,
Yeah.
right, the more of that reporting you can get, the less chance you're going to end up with that big accident.
Yeah. I mean, I had a safety culture assessment that I did, and by the numbers, I mean, this site within the company was fantastic, and people held it up as, wow, we want to be like this group.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing the personal interviews in some of the focus groups, they were telling me all of the real incidents that were happening.
Yeah.
And it was up to me to then deliver that news to leadership that
Yes.
you've got essentially what's happening, sort of like a steroid era in baseball. These numbers aren't correct. They're totally juiced.
Yes.
And it
Wow.
took them a long time for them to accept that. And once they accepted it, then the change started.
Well, I like that phrase, totally juiced. I know I was working with a company in Idaho recently, and they had some issues with how they were doing causal analysis, and people were changing, their management team was changing the report. And to me, Nicholas, the aha moment for me is when one of their auditors said, can I send the report to your personal email? I don't trust our company email system. And I went, ooh.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. That says, I mean, and that's another issue. A positive safety culture is one where there's high levels of trust.
Absolutely.
That people have back, that they're put it in the safest possible situation. I had this one incident where the vice president was calling the local saying, hey, what happened? You had a near miss. And their local site teams were working on encouraging near miss reporting.
Cool.
So top of the organization, the company's not supporting near misses, but from the bottom up, they were. And eventually, to really the grassroots level credit, they won out, and they built a culture site to site around near miss reporting. So it's seen as a positive, not a negative.
And I think one of the courses that's offered through your organization is on the aspect of psychological safety, correct?
It is, yes. Yeah. We do have a course on that. And that is it, comes down to really the work of Amy Edmondson and being on a team. Is it safe to bring the bad news forward and not be the messenger of that?
Yes.
I had a site that they took on a project around their daily walkthroughs. Mm-hmm. And they really wanted to revamp the daily walkthroughs, because what would happen at the daily walkthroughs is the employee would bring back the report, and there was nothing of any interest. And it wasn't because nothing was happening.
Right.
It was because at the meeting with all of the salaried managers, this hourly employee had to say what was going on and what was wrong, and then ask question after question.
Yes.
Well, what'd you do to fix it? Who was responsible for it? And there was no psychological safety.
No.
So the team that we had set up that had taken that on asked the managers, what do they think it would feel like if they were receiving question after question on information that they received. So they were really work culture and then working safety, and that was one of the definitely one of my more successful site implementations. They had the courage to take that on.
Wow. Well, that's commendable on your part for sure. One organization I was working with, kind of a similar situation, a Teamster, guys that drive the big trucks and everything, is moving a file cabinet, and he got a stinger on his thumb. And so they had been come to the safety meeting, and there's all the managers, the vice president, the director of safety, and after 40 some minutes of these questions, and so finally they decide they're done with this poor guy, and he's sitting there in his bib coveralls, not real thrilled with this. So the vice president goes, what all did we learn today? And the Teamster raised his hand. He goes, I've learned, I'm not going to say I got stinger on my thumb because I'm not comfortable being in this room. And you could heard a pin drop. And I went to him later. I says, thank you very much for the courage to say that. And then the vice president pulled me in his office and he goes, is there a way we can do it better? And I says, thank you for that question, because there is. Part of it was being able to trust those mid managers, let them have those relationships, and you pro it up. Because unfortunately, I'm sure you've seen it as well, Nicholas, it's like the senior management, they're quizzical. They want to ask questions, and they're going to have solutions so they can make decisions, right? Well, this is kind of almost the total opposite of this, is to allow some of these teams to work together and figure out just what occurred, or maybe the near miss, what could have occurred, and then find out later just how they're implementing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to determining intention.
Yes.
And if it was unintentional, we got a lot of work to do, and there's probably a lot of learning that can happen.
So from your perspective as a leader, because I spend a lot of time on the show about leadership, to me, that kind of begins and ends there, along with that, what we call sometimes the clay layer of mid-management. So as a leader, what's a couple of critical skills they got to make sure that they kind of keep on the forefront almost daily regarding a positive safety culture?
Well, one that sets middle managers apart from one another is their ability to run meetings.
Really?
Oftentimes somebody's promoted to mid-management because they're technically competent.
Bingo.
But that doesn't mean that they understand what it means to plan and deliver, say, a weekly safety meeting or even a monthly safety meeting. And that is often where the company is able to align their strategy, set their expectations for safety, develop more capability for others to be able to move things forward. The key skills, and it's often not built into the development of that middle management and supervisors, is the ability to run a meeting. How do you create a dialogue? How do you ask the right question? And when it's done well, I think it pays a lot of dividends.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Within the organization. Another key skill is that ability to ask questions, and ask questions at the right time, and ask a quality question. Usually an open-ended question, something that's not judging, something that's allows for some dialogue. And I think when that happens, it allows for the employees to feel comfortable. They still feel like a team member, and they can keep it more. It pains me to hear about the situation where the questions came off as almost like it was an interrogation.
Yes.
And that can be trouble for employees. It leaves a bad taste in their mouth. They then go and tell other employees, "Hey, guess what? Nicholas, that supervisor, he's a real jerk. He's a real pain."
Exactly.
As opposed to saying he's got my back, right?
He's got your back. Yeah. I've worked with companies on adult learning as well. I've had the opportunity, and I've sat in the back of the room, and there's the instructor in the front, and there's 20 or 30 people, and your boss, Dr. Simon, may be sitting beside you. So they go through this discussion 15, 20 minutes, and then they end it. Raise your hand if you don't understand what I just said. Ooh. Yeah. So do you really, so you're kind of looking out of the corner and saying, my boss isn't raising his hand, so I'm certainly not going to raise mine, right? And they do that a lot of times with the best of intentions, not realizing the way they frame that question, you're pretty much going to hear crickets. So they think they're successful.
Yeah. Right. And it's similar to the question, does anybody have anything for safety? Right? They start the meeting with, does anybody have anything for safety? Nobody's going to disrupt the meeting and answer that.
Right.
They know that if we just keep our mouths shut, they're going to assume that there's nothing for safety. A better solution is to ask the question, what are you noticing about safety?
Beautiful.
So it then puts responsibility on the employees that they're standing in front of or sitting in front of,
Yeah.
and they can go positive or negative with that question. What are you noticing about safety? And oftentimes the first time a supervisor or manager asks that, there isn't a response.
Right.
Because it's not built into the culture. But if they keep asking it week over week, they'll start to realize that, hey, my manager or supervisor is expecting me to come with information. So,
I'm on my recent post on LinkedIn. I had a great quote from Thomas Edison. I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And so with your safety culture journey, to me with a big capital J, in that process, you may have to have a few meetings where, you still get crickets, and finally maybe one person raises their hand, and then by osmosis, it kind of starts to spread through the organ a little bit because everybody gets more comfortable.
Yeah. I would say the other key skill for salaried supervisors is to invest in their people by putting them in the room and saying, hey, what could happen? We've got this big outage coming up.
Yep.
We've got this project where we're expanding. We've got 6 times the number of contractors as usual.
Right.
What's likely? And just getting them to listen and share with the other people in the room. The amount of teaching and learning that happens it always amazes me and excites me, because then we get to share it all the way up the organization to say, hey, look, this team is now working on these solutions because we allowed them 30 to 45 minutes to say, what if, what could happen?
Perfect.
What's likely?
Perfect.
What do we know about our culture?
And the benefits can be volumes. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short break. Don't go away. We got a lot more discussion coming up with Nicholas Crump and what's going on with the Culture Change Consultants. Stand by.
Safety Culture Strategies provides world-class safety culture and safety program management consultative services for clients throughout the United States. Whether your company is pursuing Voluntary Protection Program STAR designation, ISO 45001 certification, or considering a comprehensive review of your current safety programs and processes, Safety Culture Strategies brings hands-on experience combined with a unique perspective that readily translates from senior management to task-level personnel. This collective skill set provides you with a very insightful health check of your overall safety management system that can also assist with reducing injuries and attrition, as well as increasing profitability. Safety Culture Strategies is also certified to provide Ziegler Institute employee engagement training and leadership coaching. When combined with established relationships with federal and state regulators, Safety Culture Strategies is uniquely positioned to assist the safety culture efforts of any company. For additional information, visit www.scstrat.com or call us at 702-780-1410. After all, every company has a safety culture, but is it the culture you want?
Hey, we're back. And continuing our journey around the globe, we've got Nicholas Crump in Nicaragua. I've almost got that down pat on how to say it. Okay, we're going to jump into the deep end of the pool a little bit, Nicholas, because there's a lot of companies out there, and I won't name names, and they have that silver bullet, buy this book, buy this CD, have us come in and fill out a checklist for you. From your perspective, is there's ways to actually be able to measure the difference in a positive safety culture, or is it more kind of organic in nature, kind of like art?
Well, I come from both the hard sciences and the soft sciences.
Yes.
So this idea of measurement for me is one where if we're measuring for the idea that we can repeat something, I'm all for it. So, for instance, if somebody has a particular trait that they're proud of,
Sure.
I like to ask, how'd you get there?
Oh, yeah.
Right? What's a strategy? What is going to be repeated? And oftentimes it can't articulate, well, we implemented this strategy, we did these things. I said, well, that measurement is not helping you, right? We want to measure so that we know that if we do these things, then we will have the outcomes that we want. So from my perspective, the reason why we measure a safety culture, right, why we are looking at those perceptions is because it informs what will happen in the future.
Yes.
And that's a reason for us to do it. It also tells us where we need to go and do the work.
Correct.
So if I'm able to measure a safety culture and bring you data which suggests they don't have supervisors who are listening and acting on safety concerns, right? But you have a general population who's willing to remind each other to work safely, then we know where the positive aspects are. We know where the work is to be done. So
Right.
there is purpose in that measurement.
Beautiful.
Who sees the data is also extremely
Yes.
Is that measurement just for the leaders, or is it for all of those people who are in the culture? In my mind, it's for everybody who's in the culture.
Sure.
Look, this is where we're good. This is where we need to do some improvement. And the benefit of that is that ideally it's going to keep more of us safe. The I like to say, I mean, one time I had this experience where when we were talking about measuring and assessing the safety culture, and they said, well, are we going to do this every year? And then what are the top 4 subscales we need to improve? I said, oh, hold on. We're probably only going to measure the safety culture every 3 to 4 years. And I'm not going to tell you where you're going to improve, but you're going to tell me, what are the most likely areas that you want to work on?
Yes.
And that one, I will tell you, that project was not a successful project after about 2 or 3 years. And I believe it was because they had taken that approach of, well, we're going to measure the safety culture every year. We're going to run this by the numbers.
Oh.
That's going to determine effectiveness.
Yeah.
And I can't exactly remember how it fizzled out, but it didn't. It wasn't projects, which might be 10 years, 12 years, 13 years.
Wow. And you're right, because especially as you change that safety culture for a company, my analogy is like a big giant cruise ship. You keep constant pressure on the rudder, and slowly the bow starts to turn the way you want. So if you're pulsing it every 6 to 12 months, you're going to kind of burn people out. They're just going to mentally check the boxes and be done with it. And I have an organization I've worked with previously, and they had this huge, big players come in and do this giant safety culture review, and it's all electronic surveys, and they gave them a great report, 3 or 4 recommendations. So I go talk to them a couple of years later. I said, so what do you think of the recommendations? And there was this deer in the headlights. You heard Crickets, and finally he says, oh, which report are you referring to? And they said, because it was a prior president had done it, so they're going to discount it. And I said, there may be some opportunities there. At least consider them. So, but I always want to talk about who some of your favorite mentors are that helped my guests in the trajectory of their amazing careers. And after we do that, I'm going to kind of cue you up. If you have a story, maybe another story where things either went really well or they kind of went south. So if I ask you about one of your favorite mentors, I imagine Dr. Simon's towards the top of that list.
Yeah. He is one of the, I asked him 16 years ago, I said, hey, I'm really interested in this. I like the work.
Yes.
It seems daunting as a career. And at the time I was young, I guess I'm still young, but I was 30. And I asked him, I said, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? And he said, I've never done it before, but I'd love to do it. And, we're still in that mentoring path 16 years later. And I actually, my aunt used to work for Dr. Simon.
Really?
And so she's also one of my mentors. And I didn't realize she did safety culture work. And I had told her, I said, I'm really interested in studying cultures. I've been doing this at my previous job. I've reached this middle management piece, and I found that, wow, if you can really get the culture dialed in, it is amazing to watch. Well, you know that I do that. And I said, I didn't know you do that. And she's like, yeah, I do safety culture. She said, I don't know safety, right? But I do know all about group dynamics, organizational cultures, and you should meet Steve Simon, the president of Salt. So that's how I started into this work. And yeah, so in terms of mentorship, those 2 people have been helpful for me.
Wow. Well, big shout out to your aunt. So that's a pretty cool family tree, Nicholas. I'm just saying, man.
Right. Well, we come from a family of helpers and teachers. So it's
God bless.
Now not surprising, I would say.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of serving on many charity boards, and I've always found I get so much more than I give every time, and it just kind of helps make my heart smile, and I think mentally helps keep me in a better place. Okay, so I'm going to cue this up. So have you got one or two examples of, with your assistance and then willing to listen, where things went really well or maybe not quite as good as they could have?
Yeah, and I would say this is going to be, it's a positive story. So
Cool.
one of the unsung heroes, the safety culture work that I had done, was a gentleman by the name of Kevin Kohinke, and he was a plant manager, and his safety record at his plant was not good in terms of the network within that company. It was below the average, and he had been invited to one of the safety culture summits that we were holding with a partner organization, and he left saying, "We're going to do safety culture," and he told the vice, "Hey, I'm going to do safety culture this year," and they said, "No, you're not. You're not. You haven't been chosen at pilot sites." He said, "No, no, no.
No, no, no.
We're going to do this." He said, "I saw what was going on, and I want that at my site." So instead of 2 pilots, we launched 3 pilots,
Nice.
pilot sites that first year. And literally for the next, let me count it up, I would say 7 or 8 years, he not only did safety culture at his site, but he became head of the corporate safety culture transition team.
Nice.
And he led that safety culture initiative. And he wasn't your typical leader. He wasn't boastful. He was very quiet. He spent a good piece of information to share. And what he said, and he was, what set him apart from others was that he was constantly reflecting on his own safety journey. He said, "Nicholas, nobody ever taught me this stuff. I've been doing this work. I've been a leader for 30 years. I didn't realize the impact that was having on my safety culture. If I'm different, then it allows the entire site to be different. How I respond to the incident or accident dictates everything that happens."
Yes.
And he took full ownership of that safety culture. And he was then promoted to another site, and he went on to continue safety culture at that site, supporting his teams. And to his credit, he retired as a pretty young man. He told me, he's like, this was one of the most meaningful opportunities in my career, was to participate in the safety culture work. And
wow. That's always those inspirational stories. I'm sure you got another 1 or 2 in your hip pocket.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things that other people said, for instance, a vice president would visit his plant, and they said, "I can't tell if it's union or non-union."
Wow.
That was
Beautiful.
a compliment.
That's a great compliment.
And that was because of the safety culture work that they had done. So
That is phenomenal. Well, we're getting towards the end of this, and I tell my viewers, I don't know where this 30 minutes goes. It kind of goes bang, and we're almost out of here. Before we get to my last question, how do people get a hold of you guys?
Well, they can go to www.culture-change.com, or they can find us on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Usually that's an easy way for them to find us. Either look up my name, send me a direct message, or look up the company's name, Culture Change Consultants, on LinkedIn.
Sounds great. Okay, you've been on the major stages before, thousands of people in the room, so you've finished one of your amazing presentations on what's going on with safety culture in the universe. People are throwing their hats in there. They're chanting your name. They want your autograph. They want to buy you dinner. So as you go to leave the podium, what's 2 or 3 things you really hope people write down to take back to their companies to influence their positive safety culture?
Well, the first thing they probably learn is that I don't really like big crowds like that, and definitely not the cheering. It's not really my my venue. It's more of a smaller crowd.
Sure.
Where we can have a conversation and have a dialogue. And I would say that that's what I want them to write down is to spend the time getting to know their people by having a conversation, by having a dialogue, by taking lunch, by taking them out to dinner, getting to know them personally so that they know they care about you and you care about them. You show genuine concern for the people that are working for you, to build a team that's going to last, not a team that's like a work committee.
Correct. Excellent. Well, Nicholas, we can't thank you enough for being on the show with us today. Enjoy your time in Nicaragua. Right now in the United States, we're kind of getting our version of rain here in Nevada, and that happens once about every 3-year cycle. So I'm a little bit jealous of all the moisture you guys are getting. Until we get a chance to talk next time, enjoy your safety journey, and your capability to help all these companies is second to none. God bless and have a great weekend.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this week's show. I want to thank Nicholas Crump once again from Culture Change Consultants. And people, and he says, Mike, how can we get a hold of you? Man, are we the king of Segway? Hey, Rick already pulled it up. You can call me there in my office, 702-780-1410. Find me through my website, www.scstrat.com. Email, make it easy, Mike at scstrat.com. You can also find me through LinkedIn. Until next time, enjoy your safety culture journey and make sure to look at your trust. It'll speak volumes for you. Until next time, have a great time. Bye-bye.